for your classmates that are not here. Pero essentially, what we will be doing is just reminders naman talaga, at saka kung ano yung mga questions nyo dun sa past na topic. So, i ah, bakit sila nandun sa P? Bakit sila pumapasok dun sa P? Ay, nasa GC na nga yung ano, yung link. Okay, I hope they realize their mistake and come here. Okay. Ayun. Yeah, na-notify kasi siya kapag pumapasok dun sa isa. So, nakalagay naman dun P. Pulsar 100 P. Okay. So, as I was telling you, this is for questions, and ayun, I just want us to, ano bang gusto nyong unahin na questions for, kasi for last time we're done now with rational choice theory. Okay, and then right now we're supposed to start with constructivism. Ayan, yun na yung we're supposed to start with constructivism and interpretive theory, but since, yeah, that's supposed to start today. Okay, and on Thursday it's a holiday, so um okay, it's your holiday too. So we will move that one day for constructivism for until Tuesday next week. So yung topic na constructivism na i-upload ko bukas will be until next week. So 'di ba yung topics natin every 2 weeks dapat. So this topic is just for 1 week. It's difficult to read the reading. So when you read the reading, I am encouraging you to also watch videos about constructivism and to to find other simpler uh, readings on constructivism. Kasi pag hinanap mo yung constructivism online, it's always about education, constructivism and education. So that's not what we will be discussing. So what you do is to find the, I think I will put links there. Okay, I think I will put links. But yun, kung hindi mo intindihan yung reading, panoorin niyo muna yung lecture and then the reading. So again, there is no activity for constructivism. Sorry, maingay. Nag-welding sa labas. So yun, kung hindi ayun, panoorin yung constructivism. Tapos kung hindi masyadong maintindihan, we will discuss it in the next meeting. Because admittedly, it's also very difficult to read. Yeah, so just try, and then we will discuss next time. So there's no activity there, but doesn't mean that you won't ano, you won't be interacting with the materials. You still need that. Okay, and ayun. So the last topic that we had was institutionalism. Okay, so first, may tanong ba kayo sa institutionalism? Kasi ito yung paper niya, di ba? May tanong ba kayo sa institutionalism? May naiisip na ba kayo na topics na gusto nyong pag-aralan or i-include dun sa study ninyo or dun sa paper ninyo? Okay, so questions on institutionalism muna.
May I ask a question po?
Yeah.
Are we supposed to prove, like even if it's a political or institution po, like COMELEC or Congress, are we supposed to prove po how it's an institution? Or is it just this, because I read the Lowndes po and it said, I think it's kind of implying that, but I think it might also just be to prove that they have standard operating procedures.
Yeah.
Is it that po?
Yes, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So okay, I'll flash what's the instructions. Ang ingay nung nag-welding. Share my screen. Instructions. Okay, so on your screen are the instructions for the paper. So yeah, yung tanong ni Sophia is on this. No, why are they considered institutions? Yeah, so the examples is like COMELEC, Supreme Court, etc. yes, they are institutions, but you can actually discuss, for example, election in general as an institution. Okay, because of the process that we have, and then yon i-relate sa yan nga anong agency or anong parts of the government are actually assigned to it. Okay, so if you look at the if you remember from the discussion dun sa video, institutions are not just that, yung mga may pangalan na, agencies, but institutions can actually be um, things that we have done for a long time that we have codes, rules for them. So election is one of them, democracy is one of them. Um, and other things. Okay, so kaya yung example ko dyan is that you can either look at elections in your hometown or in the Philippines if you have sources for it, like and other related processes like vote buying, etc. Then the COVID-19 response, and then Korean corruption. Corruption could be considered as not really an institution, but something that is done for a long time that has pervaded governmental processes. Okay, and then Philippine foreign policy, or the stand of the Philippines, or its definition of its own sovereignty, ganyan. So I think history would be very useful when you look at these things. So ayun, yeah, the answer to that question is yeah, you need to hindi naman prove, but to at least a backgrounder, like why are they considered institution based on the based on the definition of institution uh that we put in the PowerPoint presentation or in your readings. Okay, but just a reminder, it's not just agencies, it's not just these agencies with names. Okay, kasi ang example ko, 'di ba, lagi UP, ganyan. But what I was talking about is not UP itself, but the idea of the university, the institution of the university. Because many, like for example, you can say that you can identify things that are distinct to the university, which is, for example, admission or exams, units, etc. But these are things that are not just done by UP, for example, but it's also done by other universities, meaning that it has been the rules or the norms for a long time. So that made it an institution. Okay. We call people institutions too, di ba? Institutions, like for example, when they are when they are a national artist or something. But why did they become that idea of institution is different from the one that we are discussing in institutionalism. Okay, essentially in institutionalism, we're discussing the relationship of people, okay, agency of people to structures. Okay, it means that institutions are made by people. Kasi nga, di ba, institutions have rules, have stable these stable recurring patterns, di ba? So for example, yun nga, ang unang maiisip kasi lagi talagang governmental processes. But when you look at everyday life, this is important too, kasi when we go to constructivism, we will review institutionalization, or how does institutionalization happen. When we define institutions, that's what happens. Diba yung sabi ko, recurring patterns. It's related to, for example, social construction, which is the core of constructivism. So, kailangan makuha muna natin kung ano yung institutions, because the process of making institutions is also the process of social construction of ideas. Like, for example, if institutions produce institutions that are structures, pag sinabi nating structures, these are the things that are external to us. Okay. When we say social structure, these are things that are external to us, but ang tawag dyan, we regard as something that rules or that governs our behavior. Like for example, gender roles. Okay, that's part of social structure. Like sino bang nag-decide na ang mga babae ay nasa bahay lang dapat? Okay. Sino ba nag-decide nun? Walang nag-decide nun, but it was the practices and the beliefs and the recurring patterns of actions of people through time that made it this way. Then suddenly you have an hindi naman sudden, then after that process, you have institutions, or you either have institutions or yun nga, the structure itself. The structure, the social structure. So for example, tayo, pinanganak na tayo dun sa structure na yun. Okay, because social science and also these approaches in political science that we are discussing are also based on that idea of agency and structure. Okay, that is very, ano ba? I think this is very advanced for first year students, because you will also be discussing this when you are in when you are in Soksay 197, because that's ontology of the social. But for political science, what are we saying here? What we are saying here is that, for example, if you look at the government and its rules, okay, this essentially, if you look at the government as an institution, okay, the government is the structure. It has its own rules, it has its own laws, etc. Then it impedes upon, or it affects your own political behavior. Okay, so for example, if there's corruption in the government, not because it's a, 'di ba sabi natin yung institution ay hindi lang formal rules, it has informal rules. Yung corruption, it can be part of informal rules na suddenly sa isang, alam ko na example ko dito sa isang barangay, for example, gusto nilang magpatayo ng bridge. Okay? So, in formal governmental processes sa institution na to, yung process ay dapat may bidding. Kasi malaking pera yon. Pera siya ng bayan, malaking pera. So, mangyayari ay ipapabid yung project na to. Okay? Mag-a-apply yung mga gusto mag-bid na gusto nila na sila yung gumawa ng project. Okay? But that process won't be done anymore, even though it's a formal rule, kung merong corruption or merong connection yung ibang construction company doon sa mga tao sa loob ng barangay hall, for example. So I saw this in one barangay here in Benguet, na yung kapitan mismo, siya ay may-ari ng construction company. So meron siyang vested interest, 'di ba? So meron siyang vested interest dun sa construction ng bridge, for example. So, ngayon, yung institution, it's a structure, nandyan na siya. Okay? Bago pa dumating dun yung kapitan. Pero bago din siya dumating dun, meron ding structure or meron ding institution or may practices din na informal noong corruption. Okay? So, ngayon, yung behavior niya is not just, you cannot just explain his behavior based on his own interests, because his own interests is now being sanctioned or being legitimized by the organization or by the institution. Kasi pinapayagan siya. So meaning, for example, sa isang barangay na sobrang strict nila sa rules, hindi mangyayari yun kasi wala silang ganong kind of, walang ganong naging proseso, nung informal process, nung na ang kapitan or yung mga tao sa loob ng barangay, yung magiging bidder or magiging sila na yung contractor dun sa construction na site. Okay? So on one hand, you have the institution, which is the barangay, which is, a small or a microcosm of the Philippine government. Okay, it's a small part of the Philippine government, but it's an institution that follows the rules of the government. And then on top of that, you have informal rules, which is corruption. And then you have this one person, for example, yung kapitan, na paano mo may explain yung action niya na siya yung na siya yung gusto niya na company niya lagi yung magiging contractor doon sa mga construction ng barangay, which is actually not allowed by law. But it's allowed now because of corruption and because of yung mga connections dun sa loob. Okay? So as you can see, it's not just the institution itself with the formal rules, ganyan. Kung matagal nang ginagawa yung ganun, pagpasok ng kapitan doon, alam niya na yung proseso na ganun or maaalam niya yung proseso na ganun. Then, yung behavior niya ngayon, we can explain it as something that is legitimized and is also allowed by that institution. In another barangay na wala kang ganong kind of informal rules, ganon din, his behavior, yung behavior ng kapitan would be based or would be shaped by the institution. So, ang institutionalism essentially is also nakapasok dito yung usapin ng agency at ng structure. To what extent does an actor, a political actor, for example, yung kapitan, to what extent does this political actor act on his own volition or on his own, ganyan, without influence from other people or the institution. Okay, so yung ganong kind of influence yung makikita natin sa sa institutionalism. At yung ganitong influence ng institution sa behavior ng isang tao ay hindi lang siya yung kapitan, for example. It can also be voters, kaya may vote buying dyan. Bakit nagvo-vote buy yung mga tao? How can you explain that behavior? Okay. So according to institutionalists, you can actually explain that through looking at the institution kung nasaan siya. Okay. Like for example, in UP, why are students generally like for example, in my experience, when you go out of UP, generally you're very aware of plagiarism, um you're very aware that plagiarism is a crime. So pagpunta ko dito sa isang university na pinagtrabahuhan ko, tapos yung mga estudyante doon, nagka-copy paste lang sila sa Wikipedia, ganyan. For me, it's like yung naging behavior ko is that kung teacher nila ako, syempre, mabawasan ko yung grade nila or yung iba, babagsak ko sila dun sa paper na yon. But we were from different institutions. Okay, so my behavior is based on the institution that I was from. Okay, kasi you cannot expect everyone to, to have the same values as you. Even your values, even your actions, your values can be kind of shaped by institutions. So it's really an issue of agency and structure. How much of your political behavior is based on the institution? How much of your political values are based on the institutions that you are a part of? Like for example, if you're part of this religious group, and it's the norm in this religious group to suggest or to suggest to people who they will vote for elections. So to what extent do you think you have agency or, the capability to decide on your own? How much of your agency or how much of your decisions, of your actions, behavior are based on the institutions that you're a part of? Okay? And kaya natin na-explain yung institution in that way na parang may proseso. It's because it's like that. We take institutions for granted. Akala ba natin may gobyerno na dyan ever since? Wala. Akala ba natin may university na ever since? Wala. It's because of the processes, actions of people through time. So maybe this is also the expectation that I have from your anong tawag dyan? From your paper. Like for example, the COVID-19 response of the government. Nabanggit ko na to sa paper, sa recorded lecture. We cannot say that the COVID-19 response of the government is yung parang it's unique in a way na nagbobobobohan sila sa gobyerno. No. You can look at how the institution itself has responded to certain crises before. For example, the drug problem. Okay, yung tokhang, the drug addiction. When Duterte said in 2016 that it's the 2016 Yeah. When he said that it is the most pressing or most important issue in the Philippines. Okay? And then when he went to office and then he said that ito yung mga ito yung dapat nating gawin sa mga drug addict. Ganyan. We're not taking a health parang we're not looking or we will not be using a health focused response. We're gonna use a militarized response or yun nga yung tokhang. That's actually a prelude to what they did to COVID because COVID is a health issue, right? It's a public health issue. And then they militarized it. So meaning you can actually trace or you can actually infer based on institutionalism that these things that they're doing now have a history or have is coming from a certain process. Okay? If you look at, for example, yun nga, I want you to remember for all of the approaches that we discuss that we are always asking why um why people behave the way they do. It's not just for behavioralism. Okay? Why are political actors acting this way? Because yun yung ina-explain ng mga approaches. 'Di ba? So for behavioralism, they are just observing, 'di ba? For um rational choice theory, they're saying that people behave because they are rational. Behave this way because they are rational. Okay, for institutionalism, it's saying that people behave because of institutions that they are part of. Okay, and these institutions, when you define institutions, these are actually things that have historicity and control. It controls people, meaning it's something that yeah, it's something that controls people's behavior. So yan yung pwede nyong tingnan dun sa paper itself. I'm not sure if I discussed that in that lens when I did the recorded lecture. But essentially, it's also yun nga, it's a question of agency and structure. Okay? Yeah. So do you have other questions regarding the paper? Did you get that?
Yes po. Thank you po.
Yeah, thank you. Others who have questions? Yeah, I know that these two topics from institutionalism and then constructivism next is very hard to understand because they're very abstract. Okay? You need like a kind of background or a kind of idea of where do these ideas or concepts even come from. That's why I felt the need, or that's why we defined institutions that way. Magulo siya pero hindi naman magulo pero um essentially you can understand institutionalism when you understand institutions. Okay, but at the end of it you should be able to ask and answer, why do people behave the way they do? Okay, why is the Philippine government's COVID response like this? Why are there patron-client relationships? Why is the Philippines um why is this the Philippine foreign policy now? Why is there vote buying in elections? Why do people vote buy? So you always start with people and their relationship to the structure. So agency and structure. So kasi I want to remind you of this because you will be meeting these ideas again in constructivism, which is the next topic. Okay. Okay, other questions regarding the paper, regarding the institutionalism. So my mouse, it's not working. Wala. Okay, so nandiyan naman na lahat dun sa paper. So nakalagay dito May 11 pero May 18, tama ba? May 18 pa yung deadline. And if you don't beat the deadline, that's also okay. You can extend a bit more if you need to understand more. But take note the following requirements for the following weeks. We are on the last how many weeks of class? We have the next topic, which is for 1 week, and then we have Marxism for 2 weeks, and then normative theory for 1 week, and then feminism for 1 week, and then you don't have an exam for this class, just a final paper. So yung next na major requirement is a final paper that I will be announcing next week. Okay, sorry kung ano, after nyo mag-paper, may paper ulit. Yeah, this is because of the extension. Okay, para din alam niyo na agad kung anong gagawin. So it's also 1,000 page, 1,000 page, 1,000 words. 1,000 word a paper. So yeah. Other questions? Ano pa bang points sa historical sa institutionalism yung pwede nating i-discuss? Wala naman na. I think na-discuss ko naman lahat nung sa tingin ko na kailangan i-discuss. Yeah. Do you have questions? Ano ba ulit yung i-remind ko sa class? What is that? Nothing? None? Okay, so wait. I think I'm forgetting something. Wait. Wala naman siguro. So yeah, final reminder. So if you don't have any more questions, then we don't have anything to discuss. And yun nga, dahil konti lang kayo, I think we should not ano ba, take up much of your time since wala rin naman dito yung iba ninyong classmates. Okay, so I just want to clarify those things then. So that's why we had this meeting. Okay, so the next meeting that we will have is on May 25. May 25. Okay, so on May 25, we will be discussing constructivism. So even though you don't have an activity for constructivism, please read constructivism, the article, and then the article on the Philippine politics, Philippine moral politics that comes with it. Okay, so you have three. You have the recorded lecture, the reading, and then the reading on Philippines. So kung gusto niyo na magbasa yung mga tapos na sa paper or tapos nang mag-conceptualize ng paper nila. So if you want to read, the readings are there. The lecture I will upload by tomorrow afternoon at latest. Okay, so there's no activity, but we will discuss moral politics in the Philippines in our next synchronous session. So it's not graded, of course, because we cannot do graded things in the synchronous session, but it's primarily to discuss the idea more so that we will understand the idea more. Okay, so the next is Marxism. That's another tricky approach, but it's something that I know more about. So I hope that we could also get better discussion, a good discussion from that. Okay, so yun lang, reminders for next week. Your paper is due, and then tomorrow I will upload the constructivism lecture, and then our next meeting will be on the 25th. Okay, so thank you everyone for, kung wala ng question, may question pa ba? Final call. Wala na. Okay, so if there are no more questions, I'll be dismissing you early so you could also do other things. So if you have questions, I know the the materials are hard. It's hard for me too, like some of them. Okay, kasi itong Pulse 100 para siyang pag pinagsama-sama na lahat ng expertise ng political science nandito na. So it's really bound, like for us, for me too, to be, to have a difficult time in one or more of these approaches. So I do not expect everyone to, know all of the concepts in each approach. But it will be very good if we could discuss it in class. So if you have questions, you can just send them beforehand and we will be discussing it. Okay, so for next meeting, remember we will be discussing moral politics in the Philippines by Kusaka. So nandun na siya sa VLA. So again, thank you class for coming today and for sharing your wellness break stories. See you on the 25th. Thank you.
Thank you po, ma'am.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Bye.
ma'am.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank
Thank
you,
you,
ma'am.
ma'am.
Thank
Thank
you
you,
so much, ma'am.
ma'am. Ingat po.
Yeah, ingat din. Bye.